Alright, welcome ladies and gentlemen to the official one and only Smite Super Builds. Today we have the newest Guardian with us, Khepri. Now first I want to quickly go through his abilities for the newer players to Smite and or to Khepri. Alright, so the first point I wanted to make is his passive. Every 5 seconds he applies a shield to himself and to allies for their maximum health. So building HP items can be useful and increasing the size of your shield. But be wary that smart enemies can build items that can directly counter high HP gods, such as the Soul Reaver for mages and the Shin Size for any physical gods. So be wary of that. Now the second point I want to make is his Rising Dawn. It applies a damage over time effect. Now damage over time effects are great for applying on hit effects. Since he's a magical god, this means items like Gem of Isolation, where you can slow your target constantly, refreshing the duration of the debuff slow for about, I think it's 25%. Constantly. Or if you wanted to go for the more mage type build, you can go into the Spear of Magus, which applies a penetration debuff of 2 stacks, and it can continue refreshing that so you can do more damage to that target and also your magical damage dealing allies. Also note his cooldowns are fairly lengthy, so maybe some cooldown reduction items can help with that, such as Breastplate of Valor and or the Shoes of Focus. Alright, so let's get into building Khepri. Since he is a Guardian, Guardian builds are purely all situational for the most part. You pretty much look at the enemy team and see how many physical to magical gods they have. So that kind of determines on, how many physical defensive items and how many magical defensive items. So if you're playing Khepri in Conquest, you would definitely want to have a starter item. Now, starter items for Guardians are typically Watcher's Gift, so you can maintain your gold with a passive on it. Or you can go into the Market of Vanguard looking for a more early aggression playstyle, or you're fighting against an Ares that has multiple damage over time effects, and the passive can directly negate that out. So, more than likely, probably the Watcher's Gift for better sustain overall with HP mana and the gold. So, outside of Conquest, start items for Guardians, not really too important. So let's go right into the boots. Now, boots just kind of reflect on playstyle. If you want the cooldown reduction, obviously you go for the Shoes of Focus, so you can make more plays, more pulls, and things like that. If not, you can go into the Traveler's Shoes looking for the faster rotation time with the 14 additional movement speed out of combat, of course, and also the massive increase in gold, since Guardians and support are typically behind in gold, especially in game modes like Conquest. So pick whichever one you want. The reinforced shoes I feel are a little bit more situational. If you're fighting against a team with a lot of crowd control effects, obviously this will help that out, and also make you a little bit more tankier with the 150 HP. And of course, you go in if you just want to be a magical damage dealer, you can go to the Shoes of Magi. So let's just stick with the Shoes of Focus for now. Alright, so moving on. Now, if you are fighting against a more balanced team where they have a obviously good balance of both physical and magical team comp, you can go into the traditional sovereignty and to the Haltward Amulet back to back. Don't forget these Uras are great for helping out your team in team fights, as well as they do apply to you. Now, on the topic of Assault, the MP5 and the HP5 on these items are huge. Now, let's say if you're fighting against a mostly physical team comp, you can go in straight into a pure physical protection item like Midgardian Mail. If you're fighting against mostly hunters and assassins, that is great to help counter that. Now, if you want to go for the full cooldown reduction route, and they also are mostly, and if maybe all, physical gods, you can go straight to the Breastplate of Valor in combination with the Shoes of Focus. Alright, so obviously if the enemy team is mostly composed of magical gods, unless they have like one physical god, something like that, you probably want to go to the Haltward Amulet and then build into these other magical protection items. Alright, so let's just go with the balanced and more traditional routes with the Sovereignty and Haltward Amulet, given the enemy team is a somewhat balanced team. At this point, when you have those couple of core items, you want to look at who on the enemy team is causing the most havoc, who's doing the most damage, and just trouble for your team in general, and we're just kind of looking to help shut that down. Now let's say the enemy team has a good amount, or the enemy team has a hunter and or assassin that's doing a lot of damage, we're looking to shut that down. We're looking at items like Midgardian Mail, so if they do hit you, there's a chance of decreasing their movement speed and attack speed by 30%, which is huge, and shutting down that DPS. Also, let's say the enemy team has a hunter and also a Freya or Chronos. Even if that Freya and Chronos hit you, they can also have a chance of having their movement speed and attack speed slowed, which is also helpful as well. Now, if you still want to go for the cooldown reduction cap, you can go to their Breastplate of Valor at this point. Having that 40% cooldown reduction cap is going to allow you to do all your abilities a lot more often and make more plays. Alright, so let's say the enemy team has multiple slows that are preventing you from chasing targets or making initiations, things like that. You probably want to go into the Winged Blade. It's a really cheap and efficient item, offering a lot of HP, cooldown reduction. And be aware of the cooldown reduction. Like, let's say if you went their Breastplate of Valor and the Shoes of Focus, and you go to pick this up, you are going to be overcapping the cooldown reduction, making that a completely useless stat. So if you don't pick up if you don't have the max cap already, let's just say that the Winged Blade, you can get the maximum use out of it. The passive prevents you from being slowed, and if you do get slowed, your movement speed is increased by 20% for 4 seconds. So it's a really great situational item to pick up. Now, looking for extra magical protection, you can go with the Void Stone. This is specifically great if you have ally mages that can get benefit from this. Like, let's say you have a Poseidon on your team, or Al Kwong, things like that. This item can get the most use out of it, since your allies can make use out of the aura, shredding the enemy magical protections, as well as giving you a little bit more magical power, so you can do a little bit more damage. Now, a few spicy item pickups that you can go into, like I mentioned earlier, discussing his abilities. You can go into the Gem of Isolation, looking for, a little bit more magical power, a little bit more kick to your abilities, the HP to increase your shield, and also what we're looking mainly at is the passive, like I mentioned before, with his 2 ability. It's a really... It reaches fairly far and applies a damage over time effect, and it can apply the 25% slow for 2 seconds, and since it's a damage over time effect, that 2 seconds keeps getting refreshed. So you can cast this out with your Gem of Isolation, and it hits them, allows you to be able to quickly catch up to them and make your pull and or your play with your wand, things like that. So you can look into that. Now, on the topic of HP, obviously, Ethereal Staff offering a huge amount of HP, and a portion of your HP is converted to magical power. Alright, so actives for the most part are situational, but let's say the enemy team has multiple attack speed heavy gods, and you want to help lock them down. You can go into Defeabling Curse, slowing their movement speed by 40%, and also their attack speed by 30%. Or let's say the enemy team has multiple healers. Or let's say they have a high health regeneration god like Hercules that can just quickly regen his HP. This will shut that down completely. You can go with the Weakening Curse. If the enemy team has a lot of slows, you can go to the Heavenly Agility, increasing all allies around you their movement speed, and also making them immune to slows, and also increasing their heals. Really useful item, or active rather, you can go into. You can go into the blink, mostly the greater blink tree. The way this works is you blink in and then use your wand to quickly chase them down and grab them and then pull them backwards. That's how the blink would work for him. Now, as far as Assault, Salvation is really great for Assault. Salvation also works great when you're fighting against execution gods like Thanatos or Al Kwong. The way this works is, let's say Thanatos is in the air chasing after you. You can pop this for yourself or an ally around you to get their HP quickly back up, and that way Thanatos cannot execute you. The same works for the Al Kwong. Or let's say the enemy team has multiple hunters and or assassins that have high attack speed and that rely on their life steal to sustain themselves. You can go to Shield of the Underworld. So let's say you go into dives and make a play, you pop this, any assassin or hunter that are just firing at you, you reflect a portion of that damage. Of course, it doesn't have to be an ADC or an assassin. It can also work against mages. Like, let's say Poseidon pops a Kraken on you, you're going to reflect that 40% damage back to Poseidon. That's how that works. Or obviously you can go into the shell, giving you and your allies extra protections, and also reduces damage taken. So that pretty much wraps it up for the build video. Sorry if you notice a lot of cuts. I am still recovering, so the cuts are pretty much points where I'm coughing, so please forgive me for that. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.